Steelers and Titans. And looky who is there today at Steelers workouts. Aaron Rodgers returning to the Berg, signing a one-year deal worth $22 million guaranteed, up to $25 million according to Shefty. Future Hall of Famer competing in his 22nd season, reuniting with his head coach Mike McCarthy. They won a Super Bowl together in Green Bay, as you know. And there he is, the man himself, Adam Schefter. Shefty, how'd this deal come together in the end?
Well, hello, Hannah. This was always the day that the Pittsburgh Steelers and Aaron Rodgers had circled on their calendar because it was the start of the Pittsburgh Steelers OTAs today. And so ideally, Pittsburgh said to Aaron Rodgers, take as much time as you want, go through whatever process you need to, but please give us a decision by Monday, May 18th, when the OTAs begin. And I think that it went up to this weekend before they officially and finally knew that Aaron Rodgers did, in fact, want to play. They put together a one-year deal worth up to $25 million. That was the easy part. But they had to make sure that Rodgers was fully committed, which he certainly sounds like he is. He was back in Pittsburgh about 10 days ago. You don't go back to Pittsburgh unless you're intending to sign. And now he's back for another season that a lot of people thought we wouldn't see. They thought that this could be his last year, this past season. It didn't turn out to be that way. And that means that Will Howard, Mason Rudolph, Drew Aller now go back down a notch on the Steelers' depth chart, but the Pittsburgh Steelers get the quarterback that they wanted to lead them forward.
Yeah, we're going to talk to Brooke Pryor coming up about that now four-person quarterback room and how that is all going to be negotiated. In the meantime, Rodgers spent 11 seasons as the Packers starter when Mike McCarthy was the head coach there. And in addition to that Super Bowl ring in 2010, Green Bay was a top 3 scoring offense. They ranked top 5 in wins during their time together. Only the Patriots had more during that time. Rodgers' current right tackle, Troy Fountain, was happy to see number 8 back on the field today.
I was excited. I was happy to see him back. Obviously, to have our leader back from last year, kind of having a year with him and kind of learning from him, it's kind of just picked up where we left off. It felt like we never really left, him being back in the huddle. But Will, Mason, and Drew have done a good job the past couple of weeks of just making sure that we're all on the same page. But like I said, it's nice to have 8 back.
Tim Hasselbeck and your new Celebrity Jeopardy champion, Mina Kimes, are with us now. Congrats, Mina.
Thank you. Thank you, Hannah.
Oh, my gosh. Well, we're going to talk more about that later. That was just incredible. We're all so proud of you. But we're going to give you a break and ask Tim the first question today. Tim, expectations for Rodgers and McCarthy 2.0, what are they?
Well, listen, I think Aaron will play well. I think I'm a little surprised that this is the direction that Pittsburgh is going. Now, it's not in that it happened. I mean, it was, as Adam, said, it was kind of circled on the calendar and the expectation. But look, this is Mike McCarthy's dream job. And, to think that, he's going to go into year one with a quarterback that's, will be 43 years old, in a little bit, that, there's a good chance he's rebooting at the quarterback position a year from now. And so, I'm surprised for that reason, but I'm not surprised in the sense that I do think that it'll give them their best chance for solid starting quarterback play.
Yeah, we kind of know who Aaron Rodgers is, right? At this point in his career, the ball is going to come out super fast. Had the fastest time to throw, lowest average depth of target of any quarterback in football last year. He's still accurate. I think his arm is still plenty strong, but you're not going to get much play under pressure. So I think for Pittsburgh, the key was to improve the receivers around him, and they did that. Michael Pittman Jr., to me, is a great fit for this version of Aaron Rodgers because of his ability to be a reliable target underneath. Jeremy Bernard, also who they drafted out of Alabama, I think is someone you can put in the slot, even in the backfield, and can give you production in terms of yards after the catch. But I also think there's a lot of pressure on Mike McCarthy. I mean, we showed earlier how much success he had with Rodgers in Green Bay. That was a very different version of Aaron Rodgers from the one he's calling plays for now. And he has to do what play callers like Mike McDaniel did in Miami in terms of setting up opportunities to get yards after the catch, creating space for an offense that's mostly going to be going to the first read.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're exactly right in terms of the ball coming out quickly. What's interesting is they have big pass catchers now. You know, they got DK Metcalf, Pittman Jr., as you mentioned, the tight ends are massive. Aaron will get rid of the ball quickly. I think what you're, I think, referring to as well in terms of, you know, just having to scheme certain things. Look, Aaron's going to be very stationary. That's just who he is at this point in his career, at his age. You know, only a couple of years removed from an Achilles injury. That is what I think puts the ceiling on the offense. Is you know, he doesn't move the way he once did. But you're right in terms of arm strength, ability to push the ball to areas of the field. Look, Aaron is still more than capable of doing that. And here's the deal: when he starts an entire season, your expectation can be he's going to throw around 30 touchdowns. He's going to throw fewer than 10 interceptions, which is probably significantly better than you were going to get from Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, or Drew Aller in this first year.
And it's a continuation of what we've seen from the Steelers in recent years. They refuse to rebuild. They just think that they can keep winning and competing and trying to get to the playoffs. They didn't rebuild under Mike Tomlin, and they're not willing to rebuild under Mike McCarthy in his first year in Pittsburgh. And part of that is bringing in Aaron Rodgers and not bringing along Will Howard, not bringing along Drew Aller, not bringing along the young quarterbacks that they believe have a chance to make it in the NFL in the future. They're not ready to go there right now, and the moves they made this offseason indicate that. They traded for Michael Pittman. They signed Rico Dowdle. They brought in veterans. They're not ready to go 5-12 in a season. They think Rodgers can come in and they can go 12-5 instead, and so they keep pushing that down the road because they believe they can win now.
Yeah, not a prohibitive price to pay for a quarterback of that caliber, and they are coming off a 10-win season, albeit a horrific playoff loss. All right, more teams in OTAs, including the Titans, among those with their new head coach, Robert Saleh, their new offensive coordinator, Brian Daboll, as Cam Ward enters his second season as the starting quarterback. Adam, what's the biggest indicator going to be of a successful year two for Ward?
Well, I think he's got the elements in place that can help elevate his performance. We've seen other quarterbacks take a big jump in year two. And that's exactly what the Titans were thinking when they made Brian Daboll the highest paid coordinator in football and brought him on board, because they believe he's the coordinator that can help elevate Cam Ward's play. And if you look at what Tennessee's done, they've really taken a taste of New York, and brought it to Nashville. They have the former Jets head coach Robert Saleh as their head coach. They have the former Giants head coach Brian Daboll in charge of bringing along the former #1 overall pick in Cam Ward. And they are entrusting their future to two former New York head coaches to make sure that Cam Ward fulfills all his potential.
And some players as well, right, Adam? Wan'Dale Robinson, for example, who I think is going to be a really important piece of this offense. You know, when they signed him free agency, and that was it at wide receiver, I was a little bit apprehensive. But then when they drafted Carnell Tate, I felt a lot better about his addition because it felt like everything was kind of falling into place in terms of this wide receiver room and how it fit together, with Tate creating space down the field for Wan'Dale Robinson to work underneath out of the slot. And I do think that's going to be pivotal because while I love the improvements they made in the receiver group, do have concerns about this offensive line, particularly on the interior. We'll see what happens with Kevin Zeitler. So the ball is going to have to come out quick, and to me, Robinson suddenly becomes a very important outlet for Cam Ward as he tries to take fewer sacks than he did last year.
By the way, in case you missed it, with that schedule reveal, the Titans do open the season against Saleh's former team, the Jets, which should be fun. Some more news coming out of Nashville in just a bit on this show. Falcons also in OTAs today. Kevin Stefanski is their new head coach. Tommy Rees is their offensive coordinator. Matt Ryan is your president of football. But who's that starting quarterback going to be, Adam? So Tua Tagovailoa joins them. Michael Penix coming off that ACL tear. What's the latest on his recovery?
Well, he was back on the field last week for the first time in 6 months. That's an encouraging sign for his availability in the upcoming weeks and months. And so he's gradually being worked back into practice. They'll obviously be very careful with Michael Penix. And that's why they go out and get Tua Tagovailoa, two lefties to complement one another, to vie for that starting job with a new coaching staff. Remember, this is a coaching staff that did not draft Michael Penix. The front office did not draft him. They don't have any connections to him, so they'll be able to look at both those quarterbacks, Tua Tagovailoa and Michael Penix, and decide who gives this team the best chance to win, along with all those other notable offensive acquisitions during the offseason. They've gone out, they put their stamp on this roster, and now we wait to see which quarterback seizes control of that starting job.
I mean, Tim, their schedule is less than taxing, at least how it looks right now. How do you see this quarterback situation potentially playing out in Atlanta?
You know, look, I would be uncomfortable about it if I was Atlanta. And, you know, Adam's right. You know, this regime isn't tied to Penix, but he's only going into year 3. And so I think because of where he was drafted, I think the upside of potential, the notion would be that Penix is going to be the starter when he's healthy. Then you look at Tua's deal. Tua's deal wasn't such that it was true competition for a guy that was a first-round pick, but at the same time, he's only a few years removed from, you know, leading the league in passing in terms of yards. And so then you look at that, and then you look at Tua, and you say he's only started an entire season one time in his career because his injuries, you know, have been many. So, look, I think it's a very concerning situation. And I think if you're Kevin Stefanski, who really had a pretty good team outside of the quarterback play in Cleveland, you know, you have to be thinking, look, I need to do everything in my power to not have a scenario like that happen again, because the talent around the quarterback in Atlanta is outstanding. They just need to get consistent, good quarterback play, and unfortunately they have 2 guys that just haven't been able to stay healthy.
Yeah, I mean, it's concerning, and it has been concerning, unfortunately, for this team that has the second easiest schedule this season. All right, guys, we are just getting started on NFL Live. How about the Rams all in on another Super Bowl push? But could they have a weakness to watch? Mina tells us what could potentially hold this team back. Plus, who starts under center week 1 for the Vikings? You don't want to miss what their star wide receiver Justin Jefferson had to say about a quarterback competition in Minnesota.